We have seen examples of Ripple and even Quant, and I would highly suggest you check out that deep dive. The thing called Neo blockchain. What is the Quant logo, everybody? If you're new to this, all right, let me pull this up on the screen for a second. What is this thing above my head? Yeah, that with proof in the deep dive that we did a while back, before Quant was Quant and before it was called Remit, it was literally referred to as like what, Neo? As in like Neo blockchain? Yeah, Gilbert Vernon is a huge fan of the Matrix. So the Quant logo, squid looking thing, is literally a sentinel. And what did we discover in regards to the research? Salience, the sentinel, humanize, Neo. It's like, what the heck? And this was years ago. These concepts long before Bitcoin. So we know that Ripple, again, with the outline we did earlier, you have Ripple, you know, dating back, my God, years before the whole thing of the Bitcoin white paper. And then there's even Q&T in the mix. I should say Q&T Quant, okay? So again, it's the logos. They have meanings, okay? Also on top of it, let's get more further into it as I full screen this. You will see a little bit more about this because look what it mentions. It says more about the mainstream financial operations, corporate treasuries, but national payments vision. Yeah, it's called NPV. Listen to this. There's so much talk about the RLN, and we talked about a lot in the X space. But there's the RLN, which is Regulated Liability Network, and there's the RSN, Regulated Settlement Network. Of course, we're not going to settle on an ERC20 token. And by the way, can we just stop this for a second? I talked about this on the X space. So all these people out here, they're like, an ERC20 token will never be worth much. It's not going to be used for payments. You're missing the point. It's just a key to a suite of like API everything, right? And on top of that, I want you to understand, if we're really going to use that narrative, well, isn't BTC 2 to 7 TPS? So technically speaking, BTC moves way slower than ERC20. And last we saw, didn't that almost go to $100,000? Yeah. So call it what you want. There's that. Q&T, lower supply. You get the gist where I'm going with this. All right, a little bit more because I need to get into this. So NPV was published by the government, all right, which sets the foundation, by the way, for industry to deliver the next generation of payments, infrastructure, and innovation. RLN has, or was, I should say, referenced as a key initiate, and Ala Ganx hosted a great session on this. Now, some of these names you don't know about, but that's all right. If you've been following me, shout out to Channy, he knows, I referenced this thing about the digital gilt. So back to the gilt. Roadmap was published alongside NPV, provides a practical blueprint for digital gilt issuance. Now I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of that again, because I already went into where I'm blue in the face about that. But it's understanding real value of digital assets and where they can connect them to digital money. All right, again, what about programmable money? All right, as we get further down into it, through all of this, the common thread was the community of stakeholders. Together, we are driving the transformation of UK payments and digital money. 2025 will be the crucial year to deliver innovation. And you see here in the citation, or the tags, I should say, Tony McLaughlin of Citi, Jenna Pache from Digital Pound Foundation / Quant Network, and you even see Gilbert Verdon highlighted in the purple area, okay? And then we get further down into it, National Payments Vision, Digital Gilt, you kind of get the gist, okay? All these people met. And again, this is right before Quant kind of sort of took off, before it went to like 100, right? And some people point out, well, 100 is not a big deal for Quant, you know, we need to get back to all-time highs. Hey, we'll get there. We're going to more than smash that. So what else do I have? Well, it's this. So much lost focus, tunnel vision on all the other stuff going on, and not realizing that Digital Pound Foundation has the juicy stuff. So let's take a pause on that for just a brief moment, and where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is this. I'm fully aware of some of you guys' comments, and you know, they're warranted. They're always warranted. Quant, no longer on X. Oh no, it's doom and gloom. Since when has retail been the focus of Quant? Literally says it on their site. It's not their focus. Technically speaking, you see even Ripple right? But it's a different story with Ripple. And of course, they're doing extremely well. What is the main selling point for you if you studied XRP? It shouldn't be, price going for $1 to $2. The selling point for me has always been that has to be the one that's going to be worth a lot, because when you talk about the whole idea of taking on debt, ODL is that solution when it comes to that on-demand liquidity. Again, think about if we would have had these technologies fully implemented during the recession, instead of, and I always use this reference. Here's my little glass. So I'm a bank. I want to get bailed out, of course, by the U.S. government. Well, government refills this cup once. They can't keep doing it because they're already trillions, multi-trillions in debt. Ripple's on-demand liquidity is basically that solution to fill that over and over and over again. People have this narrative stuck in their head. Nothing against them. We are all learning on, different wavelengths. But they have this narrative stuck in their head that there's not enough money in the world to cover this. Okay, why are you limiting money to one transaction? Why are people doing that? It's numerous actions, right? It's numerous times with transactions happening over and over and over again. But more importantly, it's understanding that it's not going to just be once. Okay, so again, Ripple stands out for me when it comes to on-demand liquidity, and it should for you. But what about this whole thing of Quant? What about this whole thing of Digit? That's where I want to get into this. This is really good. And again, shout out to Quant Papa for some of this. So she points out the whole thing about the pilot. It will allow the government to explore firsthand the benefits of DLT. It will bring debt issuance process as well as stimulating the wider development of DLT platforms and infrastructure across the UK capital markets. And look what it says. Hugely significant milestone, one which demonstrates our support for DLT innovation and signifies that the UK intends, yes, that's right, to lead the world in digital assets adoption. They don't want to just be on the sidelines. Like, sorry to say that the US has been for a while. They want to lead the charge. If anything, we've seen laws, right? Electronic trades documents bill become an act signed by, of course, King Charles. All right. So I'm going to jump down into this, and basically speaking, I think we have, we do have this. I think it's on the other page. So here we go. This lady, you got to see this, because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm showing a lady, and some people are like, well, so what? Who cares? Here's why you care. Tulip Siddiq was appointed parliamentary secretary to the Treasury and City Minister at HM Treasury. Gee, birds of a feather flock together. We rub elbows, do we not? HM Treasury, obviously the background of Gilbert Verdian, especially on his resume. But look at this. She came into the mix July of 2024, literally last summer. She was elected as the MP for Hampstead and Highgate in 2024. All right, look at this for a second. She has a robust resume, just like Gilbert Verdian. All right, I wouldn't say she's just as impressive, but again, worth pointing out. These are the things we want to see. I would kill for somebody like this. Well, not figuratively speaking, but you know what I mean. I would love to see somebody like this. Like, especially like, can you imagine if this lady could have been like the new SEC chair? I know it's over in the UK, but this is somebody that we would be looking for. So look at this. She was responsible for financial services policy, reform, regulation, includes financial conduct, including relationship with FCA, financial stability, including relationship with PRA, competitiveness, growth in financial services sector, banking, consumer credit, insurance and pension markets, financial inclusion and capability, sustainable finance, fintech, and crypto assets, including central bank digital currency. Gee, I wonder what the reference is there. International financial services, including regulatory cooperation, financial services, European Union issues, sponsorship of UK, GI, and state-owned financial assets, including NatWest shareholding. And look at this. Cash and payments, including Royal Mint. So say what you want. It's the terminology. Okay, we could talk about royalties, we could talk about Royal Mint, but cash and payments, interesting to see some of these particular things, especially when it comes to the concept of a peer-to-peer cash system. So do we have two peer-to-peer cash systems? And more importantly, if that's the case, I will own both. Hence why I own BSV. Hence why I own these ones that are centralized. All right. I play both sides of the fence. This ain't politics. I will position myself for when all of this takes off. All right, look at this. Engagement with the financial services sector. Financial services tax, including bank, levy, bank, corporation tax surcharge. Everybody's saying, I should say everybody, but some of you guys are saying in the comments are wondering about the whole thing about Trump and his statements in regards to tax. Well, that's encouraging. It's definitely encouraging. And on top of that, what else do we have? Well, tax pensions, tax policy, debt and reserves management policy, including green gilt, national savings and investment, debt management. All right, there's a little bit more about this. What about overseeing other territories? This is just UK. Max, stop talking only about the UK. I live in the United States. I live in Canada. I live in Norway, right? But whatever the case be, what about those overseas territories? Yeah, there you go. Treasury interests in overseas territories and crown dependencies issues. Parliamentary deputy on economy issues. So this lady is the real McCoy, okay? So all these key speeches. Jumping back to this, I know it's a lot to get into, but look what it says. In her speech, she hopes that together we can successfully harness the full potential on offer for the UK in this regard and contribution to the broader growth and success of the economy. All right, harness. So in order to harness this, wouldn't you need something with full interoperability, blockchain agnostic, doing the orchestration, if you will? Exactly. Absolutely. And as I jump into this next part, well, where does Bank of England come in? Update, everybody. Here's the update. And as I jump into it, this was reported 21st November 2024. Again, not that long ago, right? Just like a week and a half ago, give or take. But it's beyond faster horses, wholesale financial markets, and of course the digital age. And as you see here, goes on to mention, given at the Tokenization Summit 2024, Saucer Mills, okay, she's a financial market infrastructure executive director, but it says here, back to that reference I was talking about, she points out that, you know how we hear those narratives about the fourth industrial revolution? She states that it's the innovation wholesale financial markets, how they could boost growth and economic development in much the same way that the invention and production of the internal combustion engine changed the way we traveled and traded in the 19th and 20th centuries. So when you hear the topic about we are entering Web 3, we are not in Web 3. We're like in Web 2.5, but maybe we just took a jump to 2.7, if you will. Because to me, it's getting to that launch pad of full Web 3 integration. And again, how? Well, she highlights the full potential, or how the potential impact of tokenization, programmable platforms, and the adoption of new technologies could make post-trade processes faster. Again, this highlight, everybody, programmable platforms. Gee, I wonder what programmable platform the Bank of England is referring to, when especially in the past they said, yeah, we're going with Quant. Remember, Bank of England and also the BIS? So that's definitely a thing. And as I get down into the part about Project Agora, let's pull this up for a second. There's an update. What is the update? Guys, I'm telling you flat out, some of you guys send me, DMs about this. Shout out to Francisco and some of the other guys. Regulators are conducting, not like thinking about conducting, everybody. They are currently conducting joint experimentation to further their collective understanding, including on interoperability in this landscape. And for example, the bank is participating in the Bank of International Settlements Project Agora alongside 6 other central banks. This project is exploring how tokenized commercial bank deposits and central bank money may be exchanged on a public-private programmable platform, initially focused on cross-border payments. But what do you see? Central bank-led projects such as the Monetary Authority of Singapore's Global Layer 1 also seek to advance technical standards for tokenization platforms. If you guys saw the deep dive about that, you already know where Quant comes in to that whole factor. Okay? So is that it? No, but I want to share with you this. It's understanding where it says financial system efficiency, sustainability, and how they look forward to working with the whole industry to ensure the UK can move from the horse and cart era of manual post-trade processes to the automated production line equivalent of tokenized securities, settlement, and the transformation and optimization of wholesale financial markets. Again, isn't that almost word for word of what Larry Fink of BlackRock was talking about earlier this year when he was on CNBC and Fox and doing these other town hall forums, where you want to call it? I think so. I definitely think so. So, what we're going to do now is take a pause. There's another part that we're really going to get into. I'm going to give a shout out to another particular guy who did an excellent job in the space of this. And if anything, we're going to reference that.
Post from Tokenizer, who he does such a good job of summarizing all these fundamental developments. And again, the one in particular that got me going was the notion of tokenized guilds. So I'm just going to take it from the top, as I usually do, have a very general perspective as to like, what is money? Why is there going to be this, so to speak, tokenized digital economy? Like, what are the basics of it? And then going into what Quant's role is in all this, because they have quite a substantial role to play. You know, I think you all remember like this piece I wrote called The Metagame, where, you know, at least at a technological level and a standards level, I was claiming that Quant was making all the right moves to position itself as the industry standard, industry leader in terms of CBDC and the adoption of DLT institutionally. And we've only seen that at scale. In fact, one of these previous roundtables, I was predicting the advancement of a cross-border RLN project, melding into the Project Rosalind ethos and what is happening there. And we've seen that and then some. And in fact, I think I underestimated the degree of integration that this would actually be facilitating. So before I get into, like, again, the specifics of what we'll be looking at, I think it's always valuable to like look at it from a very high level. Like, what is the monetary system architecturally designed as? Like, how does it work? Like, where does money come from? Like, what is this all about? Why do we even have these institutions, right? And you know, because, you know, we're biased, we love what we're invested in, but like, and so we think CBDCs are going to take over the world. But like, if you actually look at fundamentally the role of all these different assets, right? CBDCs are just one facet of a greater whole, right? And when Augustine Carstens talks about the singleness of money, which this concept will come up quite often, right? There's a lot into the singleness of money, because you have to understand that money provides a lot of different functions for different people, right? In different roles, right? There's a reason why money tends to fracture over time in space. And that's because of, again, its utility, its general use utility, right? So just getting into like origins of money, the core of the monetary system, people think that the central bank is the core. And technically, yes, it is. But if not for other aspects of the monetary system, which lead to the fracturing of the singleness of money, especially when you have institutionally defined money instead of the more traditional monetary systems we've come from, which again, we'll get into. Again, this is where you can start to understand that the central bank is not actually how money is created, right? That's an oversimplification, right? The real origins of money actually comes from money lending, right? And in this, if you look at the mechanism actually of bank deposit creation, right? So commercial bank deposits and using mortgages and these other facilitations, right? There is no, especially in this digital ledger system, there is no robbing from Peter to pay Paul in this instance. Like, new money is just created out of nowhere as a simple entry on a ledger, right? So lending is the means by which new money is created by default, right? And you still have like ways in which, you know, central bank may quote, create money, unquote, but it still needs a counterparty, right? Well, even if the counterparty is itself, there's always a flow from and then into, right? And even then, if it's only within the bounds of the central bank itself, that money doesn't actually do anything. There isn't actually any creation of new value. It's just kind of an accounting trick they use to manage and to facilitate the pipes of value, which are there they're not for the central bank, they're there for its people, right? So again, going back into the origin money, going back into the first singleness of money, I would claim that the atomicity of gold was a really clever way in which we achieved this, right? I mean, so again, going back into history, where lending first started, you have agricultural societies and these hubs of trade in which the so-called standards of the effective standards and means of commerce, right, were converging upon a few quantitative modes of exchange, right?
It's this. Let's blow this up more. Come out of the frame. Look what it says. It says, plain as day, regulatory framework must be clear, predictable, proportionate. Regulators must have a critical role in implementing the MPV. Regulators must coordinate well to support each other's activities and manage collective impact on regulated entities. Gilbert Verdian talked about this call to action. Now, this is a response to that call to action. It really is. If you've been following Quant, you know where I'm coming from. Well, where are you coming from, Max? Innovation. I will read this verbatim. Innovation must be at the heart of UK payments. Okay. Quant network, where their position being in the UK, delivering solutions for consumers and supporting growth of UK businesses, economy, fundamental to unlocking benefits of next generation technology. Right. By creating a platform, the overledger, that will allow all of it to scale. There's different definitions when it comes to scalability. Quant is not trying to recreate the wheel of making new blockchains. They're leveraging all of the blockchains, literally every single one. And if you don't believe it, look into it more, because Gilbert Verdian and Martin Hargreaves and the rest of the Quant network crew, even Dr. Luke Riley, has said numerous times that the key thing moving forward is not just that leverage, but it's allowing current blockchains, if you will, to do what they already do, what they currently specialize in. So, wouldn't that involve a network? Wouldn't that involve the RLN? Yeah, and who's all part of the RLN? Everything we're talking about. XRP, your Stellars, heck, your Hideras, obviously your Quants. So, that was worth pointing out. Now, here is your icing on the cake. Again, glad to bring it to you guys. Shout out to Quant Papa. Took the liberty to fast forward and listen to this whole thing. Is something coming together? Something's coming together. What is it? Internet Engineering Task Force. What do they have? Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. What update? November 6th. South Korea? Bank of Boston, the United States? Uh-huh. What the heck's going on there? What the blood clot's going on there, Maximus? Well, listen to this. Listen to it for yourself. Yes, the guy has an accent, but he could, you could still understand it. It's the request. Listen to this. Quant is getting something you have no clue about. Let's listen to this. And if anything, watch the right side frame. You will see a familiar person if you follow Quant closely. Thomas Harjano from MIT. How many times has he worked in collaboration with the Quant network? More importantly, the Internet Engineering Task Force. Let's go ahead and play this. Here we go.
Hi, Peter Liu from Huawei. Great work, Rama. And also, I'm happy to volunteer for the reviews. And also, aside of that, can we go back a little bit to the boxes, the text on? Yes, that one. So I don't want to blocking the process of the last call, but there's ongoing the data asset exchange thing happening in both China and Europe. They have some kind of use case of that kind might use SATP as a underlying technology. So I hope that it's already inside of the section 5, because I see there are like tokenized specializing content management. Some kind of cases, like this is kind of tricky thing, because like the data, it's a data as an asset, but still needs kind of exchange. So I hope this does not. I think it should belong to the whole section 5 thing, and not make any disruptive changes. But I think some minor, very very minor, adding of this what's happening in the Europe, ISO and or the use case. I think just one, two, three sentences. I don't know if that's a acceptable revision that could be done at this time being.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think even if it's included as a reference to here is an example of one of these use cases in the wild, then I don't see why not. But again, to Ollie's point and to Wes's point, we should be covering ways that it could be implemented rather than specific implementation. But it's good to have certainly such a strong reference of where it would be useful, definitely.
Right. Yes, I will not be so.
You're fine. You're fine.
Thank you.
So focus on far right middle frame. You see Thomas Giorgiano there. He's sitting in the middle far right desk area. I'll play a little tad bit more about this. For some of you guys who are not really into quant, this kind of goes over your head, but it's very, very significant. Because again, we talk about the call to action. Well, when we talk about programmable money, don't overthink it. I've stated this example for numerous times. Maybe you guys get tired of me saying this. I'll state it again, especially if you're new. So when we talk about orchestration, understand this. Yes, ISO 222 gets a lot of attention, but ISO TC 307 doesn't get enough attention. They are truly the orchestrator when it comes to the ISO coins, if you will. So when you see examples of these people getting together, like this particular gentleman that you just saw earlier from South Korea. Well, okay, South Korea, programmable money, is it CBDC? What the heck is it? Well, pump the brakes on that. Again, if you get more into this, it's the whole thing like with like the Bank of Boston, right? That sounds nuts. But why would Thomas Giorgiano be here? Well, again, SATP, IETF. Understanding that if you're new to some of these terminologies, what is SATP? Well, Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. And what is IETF? Internet Engineering Task Force. Internet Engineering Task Force dates back to the 1980s. Okay? So if it's back to the 1980s, then understand that these are the pioneers of the internet, literally before it was called Web 1. Right? If anything, like, Web 0.1 or 2 or whatever the case be. But the point is that Quant Network has these connections with MIT. MIT does consistent collaborations with the Quant Network. Why? Programmable money moving forward. All right. So, again, back to the whole thing of South Korea. The example I've used for 2 or 3 years now is, again, back to the whole thing with Ripple and ISO 222. It's understanding that Swift messaging system, not Swift blockchain, two different things. Swift messaging system, you send an you send an MT messaging, call to, the Bank of Greece, to the Bank of Seoul, South Korea. Well, Seoul, South Korea has Korean characters, okay? And it's actually pretty easy to distinct that. All right, I have friends that are, Korean and so on. So if you ever look at the characters, yeah, there's Japanese characters, there's Chinese characters, but the one that always, you could quickly see the characters for Korean characters because it's a little bit more bubbly on the character. But the point is, sending that message across across continents, if you will, and getting a message back. So, all right, here's an example. Let's say Bank of Athens is going to send $10 billion cross-border payment to the Bank of Seoul. right? So it leaves Greece. And in that particular message, it's written in that alphanumeric, like how Greek is. Again, I was part of Alpha Beta Kappa. That's my fraternity, by the way. And, if you guys have ever been to college and so on, you have your fraternities, you have it's written a certain way in Greek. Well, imagine that message getting garbled up to, Korea and vice versa. That creates incredible delays. As the saying goes, time is money. And if anything, it costs so much to move that money. All right. So when we talk about that money being moved, ISO 222 is the solution that takes these messages and they don't get garbled up. And what I mean by that is, again, I'm a gamer and I still host, servers for Call of Duty and so on and some other games. You get too big of what they call a log file. What happens is you're only able to read basically, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of the page. It keeps loading the log file. And then what happens? That message truncates. So ISO 222 is supposed to solve that. Okay? All right. So what? Here's the so what. If you think about this, where you can have the message go from Bank of Greece, go to Bank of South Korea, and not have any truncation, that's great in itself, because you don't have to call on the phone and wait for, oh crap, I missed it, our time difference, like they're not even open, blah, blah, blah. Again, you want real-time gross settlement. You want that thing to settle. You want there to be that connection. If there's not a connection, I mean, even with Solana, right? Time is money. That network goes down. Well, can you imagine what's been happening for decades? So as a result, Bank of Greece gets hit with a big fee. And when we talk about some of that stuff, I mean, I use the example 10 billion, but in reality, I think what they moved was, what was it, guys? 100 billion, and get hit with billions of dollars in fees just to move that amount of money. So it does not incentivize these banks to do these big money transfers. What happens basically when you have ISO 222, the full message gets sent, by the way, pretty darn quick, because we're using these particular technologies. The message is received, and instead of saying, I don't know what this means in Greek, you immediately get it over to your side, okay? And you see it in your language of Korean. You instantly know, boom, I know what that means. This bank is doing a call to a message, and they're requesting cross-border transfer of 100 billion, or maybe it's a trillion, wherever the case be. Maybe because Korea needs to bail out Greece. Well, that's a good example, because Greece has had some economic problems in the past, have they not? Absolutely. So again, time is money, and when money is delayed, especially in billions and trillions, that means banks, big banks, central banks get hit with those big fees. We have a real solution that ends this. And the point I'm trying to get into, and I know that's a long explanation, is if there's no truncation and it's instant interpretation, well, interpretation is another form of interoperability. All right, ISO TC 307, the Quant Network Standard, does what? It does full interoperability with any particular blockchain where everything talks together and orchestrates ISO 222 through the RLN. And if anything, if we're going to sell Ripple XRP, that'll be the regulated settlement network. Do you understand how this all really happens? I think some of you do, but there might be some of you guys who don't, and that's okay. You're new. I welcome you. But when we talk about time is money, then technologies that solve that at scale have to be worth a hell of a lot of money. Pardon my expression, right? Heck of a lot of money. Okay. Limited supply. Oh, it's just an ERC20 token. Again, have you studied Gilbert Verdian? Have you studied his 20 years in cybersecurity? Go to gilbertverdian.com/CV and just look at the grocery list. I've already done this before. All right, so that mandate comes out. I want you guys to think about this. This mandate comes out November 2025, says, I don't know the particular date, that even Swift references, and I've done deep dives about it. So you will see that mandate happen. And if anything, why is that significant? Well, think about it. If Quant Network orchestrates this all, and again, these networks behind the scenes, they have to have a little bit of Q&T. Can you imagine the price shock with that? That has to be more incredible than anything we've ever seen in the history of crypto. You know, oh, you're just saying that, Max, because you own it. Okay. You provide your research. And if anything, I welcome it, because I don't think I'm too far off on this. Because when we get really into the weeds of things, if you have, how should I use this analogy? Sometimes it's kind of hard. I kind of look at it like this from this perspective. We talk about the bridge currencies. All right. So we talk about all this interoperability, all these bridges connecting and so on. Is QNT going to be, to a sense, their own toll booth, if you will, where it's just a little sliver of QNT here and there and all the time, going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Whether it is Boston to Seoul, whether it is New York City to London, whether it is London to Paris, whether it's Paris to, you know, Frankfurt, Germany, on and on and on and on and on. And then when we look more into it, smart contracts. Watch the video I released earlier today. If you don't have all the time in the world, watch that video from beginning to end. You'll be so glad that you did. I understand there's some people that are upset about my analogies. That's okay. At the end of the day, as the saying goes, you cannot please all the people all the time. Right? Ah, man. All right. I want that to soak in, because sometimes we do not grasp that importance of API. Okay? That is such a big deal. Okay? That is such a big deal. You need to see that visualization. I don't want to give away the farm. I want you guys to see that. And if anything, you just want the answer to that, hey, I got chapters for that video that was released earlier today. Okay? It's the one that says XRP 589 mystery solved, and it shows like QNT and all the other ones. You can jump right to the answer if you want on the chapter. That's fine. I'm glad you do. I appreciate anybody that watches content. All right. I know I went on a tangent on that, but you got to understand that. So this guy from Korea, Bank of Boston? Okay. They realize that what? US is still the biggest player. All right. So what happens when we get more on board? Well, last I checked, IETF is an ongoing thing, because they have engineered the internet since the 1980s, back when it was news groups and IRC. Shout out to all you guys that used IRC back in the day, right? All right, Max, I get it. Okay, I hope you do.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. So just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.